My name is Dylan with Espresso Outlet. If you guys are in any need of any kind of home or commercial equipment, make sure to stop on by Espresso Outlet, and one of us will be able to help you guys get the best equipment for you and your company. So we have Payne here today with Sweet Pea Coffee Co. So you can follow them on Instagram. Do you guys also have a website as well?
We do, yeah. It's at sweetpea.coffee.
Perfect. So if you guys want to follow them, that would be great. And I guess the very first thing is just go ahead and introduce yourself and how you started your mobile coffee business.
Yeah, so like I said, my name's Peyton. My wife and I started this business. See, we originally started the process about 7 months ago, give or take, and we just opened our doors roughly 2 weeks ago. So, kind of give you a timeline on the process of everything. We knew we wanted to do something in coffee, but we actually just moved back from the Illinois area. And
Oh,
up there, while I lived in Illinois, about an hour outside of Chicago, I had the privilege of working for a company called Viator Coffee Company. Shout out to them if you're ever in that area. And I was their catering manager for about a year, and I fell in love with it. I've always been in love with coffee, always been kind of a coffee nerd, but never seen the side of catering and getting to go out and do events for businesses and pop-ups for people and just kind of spreading the joy outside of that regular shop community. So we knew we wanted to do something, and coming back home to Texas, we knew that a mobile unit would probably be the best fit for us with weather, and the area that we're in doesn't really have a lot of specialty coffee people around us, which is something we like to try to focus on and be really specialty coffee forward. So that's how we got started, and that's why we're doing what we're doing.
that's awesome. So I got to ask you, I live in Illinois. So how did you like Illinois?
I liked it. I really liked the season change. I mean, the winters are obviously kind of harsh, but I really love the season change. It was a lot of fun. I don't love the taxes in Illinois,
Yeah.
income tax or anything like that, but we do definitely miss the area. We lived in Geneva for a little while,
Okay.
and that area is just gorgeous. Really beautiful river running through the towns, and the people are really cool up there. So
So what made you want to make the switch to go to Texas? Are you originally from Texas?
we are, yeah. My wife and I are originally from here, and all of our family is here. So the only people we had up there was community and friends. And so, because of that, we decided to move back. We had a baby boy about 10 months ago. He's about to be 11 months
Congrats.
old. And so, after having him, we just were like, we've got to be back closer to family. So we made that move back home.
That's awesome. Everything went pretty smooth.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. So, kind of briefly explain. So, you guys started your business a little bit ago. So, explain the process of starting up, tearing down, and kind of how long each one of them takes, just to kind of give somebody who's looking into getting into a mobile coffee unit kind of what it's going to take to get that done.
When you say starting up and tearing down, are you specifically referring to like my day to day process and like starting my trailer, or like the startup of when I built the trailer out?
So we'll go back to the startup and the building a trailer out, but this one is for like when you go to like an event to serve, what's your
Perfect.
startup and what's your tear down procedures?
Totally. So, most of my equipment is mounted on my trailer. My espresso machine, my batch brewer, and one of my grinders is all mounted inside my unit. I have a pretty large bin, not too big that I can't carry it myself, but a pretty large bin that I keep all of my materials in. So we're talking syrups, scales, cups like that you brew into, like little glass Gibraltar cups, as well as like the stainless steel tumblers for ice drinks, all of that kind of equipment, coffee, anything that you would really directly need. I keep in what I call a go bin. So I keep my go bin kind of stocked and full at all times based on events. So everything's stocked in there. It's actually sitting on my trailer when I'm not using it, and it stays in the trailer while I drive around. And then when I get to an event, typically I run off of a generator. So the first thing I do is pull out my power cord, pull it to connect it to my trailer, start my generator up, let it run, and get everything plugged into power. Because the main thing is getting your machines turned on so that they can get up to temperature, which, depending on the power you're running, takes roughly about 45 minutes, give or take, to get all of your machines up to temperature. You want to make sure that your espresso machine is obviously hot enough that you can pull your shots at an ample temperature. Because if you do it while it's too low, you're going to have some issues pulling your shots, and then you're going to be spending time and a lot of wasted espresso trying to dial in your shots because you didn't give it the ample time to come to temperature. Depending on the machine you guys would have, I mean, my machine, I use an Appia Life 2 from La Simonelli, and it doesn't have a specific temperature read on it. But it does have a light engaged on there that lets you know when you are brought up to temperature, which is really helpful. So that's my first process. From there, I open up my go bin. I start setting everything up. I have a little bit of storage on my trailer. So stuff like my cup racks, my syrup racks, stuff like that lives underneath some of my cabinetry. I'm able to pull that out, set that up. I did spend a lot of time designing the interior so that I would, one, have storage, and then two, knew exactly where everything went. So before we ever opened, we did a mock open and set everything up so we knew how we wanted it and where we wanted it to go. So it's a pretty quick process. I would say it takes about 30 to 45 minutes total to get everything set up the way you want. And then about the time I'm finished setting up all of my cups, all of my syrups, and I have everything looking the way I want it to look on the inside, my machine's usually up to temperature and I'm able to start dialing in.
So take us through closing everything down. How long does that take on average?
On average, about 45 minutes to an hour to shut everything down. You have to, I mean, it's the same process as the beginning, just backwards. So everything goes back into my go bin, and there's no specific order. I found you could do it one way or you could do it the other, and it takes about the same amount of time. You're in a pretty relatively small space, so because of that, it doesn't matter the order in which you do things. So I typically start with opening up my bin, which I take off my trailer, by the way. I forgot to mention, once I'm fully set up, I take that bin out of my trailer off the floor. I put it in the back of my truck and I have the full space on my trailer. So everything I need is in there. And if I do need anything out of that bin, like some extra lemonades or powders or anything, it's just a few short walks away. You know, it takes a few minutes to grab it and come right back, which is really nice. But I grab my bin, I put it back on my trailer, I start to tear everything down, put stuff back in the bin where it goes because it kind of has a specific spot. Everything fits in there a certain way. And that's something that you really get used to the more you start working. So, as I said before, I was a catering manager. And because of that, I really got used to the processes of setting up and tearing down in a timely manner, right? You want to do it quickly, efficiently, and you want to do it in a way that really helps you support your business the best. So for me, having that go bin ready, pulling everything out, and then being able to put that exact stuff back in, having a specific spot for all of my syrup holders, my cup holders, stuff like that, it makes it pretty easy to tear down. For a single person like myself this morning, it took me about 45 minutes to get everything set up, get ready to go. On another day, if I have a help, like my wife typically comes and helps me, we can get it done in half the time. I mean, she's setting up syrups and stuff while I'm setting up cups. And then I find that we can set up in as fast as like 20 to 25 minutes, really, which is nice. So if you do have help, it does go much faster. But by yourself, about 45 minutes to an hour to tear down as well, because you're putting everything away. I have to take my grinder and my puck press off the trailer. So I actually have the original boxes for both of those, which they go in, and I transport those in my truck. Just so during transit nothing happens. I don't like to keep those on the trailer. I had no specific way to mount them to my countertop like some of my other equipment is. So with those being really expensive and really delicate to damage, I keep those boxed up and inside my truck. So that's probably takes the longest time to clear out your grinder, put those back in the box, clean everything away, and then I typically do about a 10-minute tidy up in there after everything's put away. So this includes wiping down the countertops, cleaning out my 3 compartment sink, stuff like that, just so that next time I come in there, I'm not worried about cleaning up after the last time I was in there.
So where do you bring your truck or where do you store your trailer once you're done with events?
So I'm blessed that my apartment complex I currently live at has covered parking. And we were able to actually rent a covered parking spot from my apartment complex, similar to if you were to have one with your car. Um, Again, super blessed because the spot I'm in is a spot, and then the spot next to it is a full size parking spot with the no parking lines. So it's not a spot they actually sold to anybody. It's just for like a crosswalk along the way. So because of that, I'm actually able to have plenty of space to maneuver my trailer in and out. My trailer is, let's see, with the tongue, it's about 17 foot. I mean, it's about the length of a larger parking spot, but I can fit in a parking spot. So the interior of my trailer is 12 foot long by about 7.5 to 8 foot wide. You lose a little space when it comes with walls and everything, but not too much. And it's pretty compact for the most part, even though it is a larger trailer to scale, depending on what some people have. I know some people carry 16 foot, even 20-foot trailers I've seen on some of these pages, which I think is crazy. The space seems great to have, but we are actually able to fit everything we need in the space that we have. So I'm blessed to have a parking spot here. I will say I did a lot of research into where I would park my trailer before when we got it, because I wasn't sure where we were going to be able to park it. Living at an apartment complex, I kind of automatically assumed that I wasn't going to be able to park it here. It was kind of a shot in the dark to ask if I could, and when I found out I could, we were really surprised. And then the spot worked perfectly for us. Again, if it was any other spot in this complex, that is the only one that exists like that. And if it was any other spot, we wouldn't be able to park it here. In which case, the commissary that I work with has parking for trailers, and they actually give you a bit of a discount when you have to go fill up at the commissary if you park your trailer there. But you are paying a monthly fee, and that can kind of range anywhere between like $100 to like $250, depending on what you choose. There's covered parking, there's uncovered parking, there's spaces that allow you to have electricity so that when you park your trailer, you can plug in and keep your refrigerators on and stuff like that. And there's other spaces that are just a straight parking spot. So that is one thing that's very important when you have a trailer, is to just be mindful of where you're going to park it. Because if you don't have a house with a driveway or something similar like that, then looking into an alternative like a parking for RVs and boats or even your local commissary is definitely the way to go.
So you said earlier that you have your machine bolted on your countertop and you park your trailer outside. Do you have that plugged in to where it keeps it cool? Because I know Texas can get pretty hot, and even chilly in some areas of Texas. How do you moderate the temperature in the trailer?
So I don't have that plugged in when we park. I don't have access to electricity. So another part of teardown, I guess you say, is part of that. When I come home, I stop and I offload all of my milks out of my refrigerator. So I have a really nice, I think it's a double A chef refrigerator that is underneath my countertop. My builder works to fit it in there perfectly, which is nice. And we take all of the milks out and bring them into our apartment where we store them in sometimes our fridge. We're looking at getting a mini fridge for storage for stuff like that, which is another issue when you're fully mobile, when you're looking at parking somewhere else that doesn't have power, is you have to think about where you're going to store your leftover product. Because a lot of times if you're doing pop-ups or even events, you will come home with leftover product and you will have to have somewhere to store it. So that's two things. You don't want to take too much with you, but you also want to make sure you have space to store it when you come back as well. So because of that, we take everything out. Our fridge locks when we're in transit, so nothing falls out, which is really nice. But we take everything out, we store it the way it is, and then that's part of why getting to an event in a timely manner is important for us. I know some people even run their vehicles down the road with their generators on. I don't recommend doing that. For a number of reasons. You can also just mess up your power cord. It could fall out of the back of your truck. But because of that, we have to get somewhere, plug up everything in to keep our machines going as fast as they can. So when it's colder outside, like for instance, last week when I was setting up, it was about 32, 35 degrees that morning, which is pretty brisk here in Texas. So it took my machines a little bit longer to get to temperature. That water has to get obviously hotter. And then today it was probably about 75. So my machines got the temperature probably about 10 or 15 minutes faster than they did last week, which is kind of nice. As far as air in the trailer goes, we have an AC unit that my builder put into our trailer. So it's similar to, it's like a mini invert AC, similar to the ones you see in houses that sit on the wall. And then you can put the compressor on the outside, right on the outside of the house, that's mounted to the tongue of our trailer.
So you said it got down to 32 at night. Are you afraid that overnight, if it's not plugged in, that the boilers will freeze?
That is a concern that we've talked about, but being in Texas, I'm not overly concerned. I will say that if I am serving here, there is a certain temperature where I'm not going to set up. So it warms up pretty quickly. So being about 32 to 35 outside, within the 30 minutes to an hour of me setting up, the temperature does rise about 5 to 10 degrees. Now, when it becomes more of winter here, which kind of happens at times, can happen as late as like mid-January, then I won't be doing events. I do worry about the machines and the trailer slightly. I have talked with my equipment provider because I did specifically find a service provider in the Houston area that services equipment that we bought all of our equipment from. Because I do find that if I have any issues, I want them to be able to know what's wrong and what they're working on and have parts available, which is something else I'm happy to talk about. But I have talked with them, and if it does look like it's going to freeze like it did in Texas a few years ago, I can unbolt my equipment. I can bring it inside of our house to kind of keep it at a warmer temperature. But I'm really hoping to not have to do that. I just plan to not run the trailer then, because the water in the line the water lines could also be frozen. And if that's the case, it's going to be really hard for my hot water heater to heat those lines up and thaw them at the same time. So
Yep.
because of that, I'm not too worried about the equipment being on the trailer in a harsh temperature. I do think that it will stay on the trailer just fine, and that when the temperature drops and that water that might be frozen does thaw, that they'll be fine to run as soon as they're ready to heat back up.
Yeah. So that's a good point to bring up for anybody doing a mobile business, is to definitely look into, depending on where you're at in the world, see what to do about heating. I know a couple people do space heaters, like an oil space heater, which is like the safest kind of space heater, but you would have to run some kind of extension cord to the trailer to keep that going.
Yeah, like if you're in Illinois, we looked at doing something similar there. And if you're doing a trailer and where it gets really cold outside and stays really cold, definitely recommend that you find somewhere that you're parking that has power all the time, because you can move from space to space and your machines and equipment will be fine during that time. But definitely leaving it for long periods of time overnight while it's continuously, 20 degrees or lower, I don't recommend, because when you go to turn your machine on or run your trailer, your water could definitely be frozen in your tank, which is going to cause issues in your line, which could also short your boiler out, right? If you don't fill your boiler with enough water, then you could burn it up as it's trying to work to heat up water that just isn't there. So, yeah, definitely one big factor to think about depending on where you live.
So for insulation on your trailer, did you by any chance spray foam the bottom part of your trailer to keep it better insulated?
I believe our builder spray foamed it. I did not personally build our trailer out. We worked with a company called Press On Coffee.
Okay,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, they're fantastic. I don't know if you've talked to Anthony over there. He's a
I just
fantastic
had
guy.
a podcast with him about 3 days ago.
Cool. Yeah, he's a really cool guy. I highly recommend them. He's a great builder. Not only are you going to be supporting a small business, but you're going to be supporting somebody that cares about helping other small businesses thrive. So through the whole process, Anthony was there through and through to answer any questions I had, made sure that we were getting exactly what we wanted. I mean, we designed the complete layout. We picked out the cabinetry, the walls, and he continued to give his advice on how we should do things as well through the whole process. So as somebody who knows a lot about coffee and little about building out a trailer, working with somebody who knows both is something I highly recommend. So,
He's awesome, super knowledgeable. He's from Idaho, right? I believe.
yes,
Yeah. So did you, I know he said that you can either buy the trailer or you could pay him to get the trailer, but did you guys get the trailer and bring it to him?
we didn't. I reached out to him. He had a trailer that he posted, and we started talking about building it out. And actually, I'm about 6'4" roughly with my shoes on, and so that's something I had to think about was height. Some of these trailers you see people have are older campers, can be kind of not very tall on the inside. So he was actually going to custom build one of these trailers out to have a 7-foot ceiling that did not originally have that clearance. It was about a 6-foot clearance. And then very early on in the process, before he ever started building out our design for that trailer, he bought another trailer. That's the great thing about Anthony. He's always looking for opportunities around him to buy, to build out for other people. And he called me up about a day after he bought it and was like, "Hey, I bought this trailer. I think it would suit you better. It's bigger, and it's going to have he's like, it's going to have a little bit shorter of a clearance on the inside, but it's got a 6'6" clearance, which is just enough for you if you're comfortable with that." And so we went ahead and moved on with that because it about doubled our space. The trailer before that we had was going to be about 6 by 9, whereas like I said, now we have about a 12 by 7.5. So
That's awesome. So who did the custom artwork on your trailer? It's really good.
all of our like
The logo.
exterior.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's vinyl put on there. We went with a local company. So Houston is a very wide area, but we have family in a town called LaPorte, which is on the other side of Houston from us, and we used a local sign company there. They do vinyl wrappings for trailers, trucks, all sorts of things like that. One thing, actually, I'm glad you asked about that, is that we had the trailer repainted after we bought it from Anthony, and it was shipped to us, and then from repainting it, which costs about $1,500 to repaint the trailer our size, just one singular color, which really wasn't too bad. We were looking to get the vinyls put on, and I went to a couple of larger companies like Fast Signs, stuff like that, and got quotes from them that came back around 2 grand, 2,500, and we just couldn't believe how much they were going to run us for something like that. Whereas we chose a local small business that does a pretty big volume in the area that they're in, and we got it for under $1,000 for the exact same stuff other people quoted us. So really going out there and making sure that you're checking the prices on things and not just going with the first one you find is something I highly recommend, because while you might get a price that you think is really good or might be blown away because you're like, I had no idea it was going to cost that much. Like, don't be afraid to look around for places, make sure they have good reviews, make sure people can recommend them. We definitely had recommendations from this place already, but just make sure that you're paying an ample price, because as a small business, every dollar counts. So finding something even $200 cheaper than another business, might really make the difference for you.
So is the whole entire trailer wrapped, or did you get a half wrap?
It's just each individual thing you see on our trailer. So if you check out our Instagram at sweetpea.coffee, or sorry, our Instagram is Sweet Pea Coffee Co. You can see all of our logos on the trailer. Those are individual vinyls. So they printed them out on a really large vinyl printing machine and stuck those on there for us. So we designed it ourselves. My wife actually designed our logo, and all of our font stuff. And so we took those copies, we vectored it, we sent it over to them, and then they were able to print those out and individually put those on there.
Yeah, so I
So
have this pulled up here. So here's their Instagram. And yeah, do you mind if I show one of the videos really quick?
yeah, please do.
So this is, I know there's music to it, but
It's okay.
Nothing like I've ever seen. It's just a thing of beauty.
Yeah, so we love our vinyls. We absolutely love the way that they turned out. They look really crisp. Our trailer is textured with like a vinyl covering on the outside, so it's like vinyl siding almost. Because it's textured, it creates rivets, which do make it hard to put something like that on our trailer, which is something that I didn't think about to begin with in buying the trailer. We almost weren't able to put vinyls on it because the company was scared to put them on there in fear that they are going to pull off too early. And so they were very upfront that they were happy to try it. We drove our trailer across town. They tried a sample vinyl on it, and they're like, "We're definitely going to be able to get it to stick." And then when it was done, they're like, "We feel good about how long it'll last. But just so you know, like, you could have issues. Just continue to watch it." Which in places it does bubble, which you can't really tell unless you walk up to it and you're really looking for it. But that is something we have to keep in mind and that I have to watch for, especially as it's going to get hot back this summer, is that those vinyls could pull off the trailer. So when you're buying a trailer, everything down to the texture of the outside matters when it comes to how you're going to logo it and how you're going to put your brand on the trailer. So
yeah, we own a small coffee business as well. It's Brewhead Espresso. We have a 7 by 16 by 7 foot trailer, and the outside also has the rivets. We have not put a custom logo on it yet, so we kind of look like we're carpenters selling coffee. But it's nice. But yeah, fine. Definitely going around price matching. It's wintertime here now. I live in Illinois, so we're gonna wait until spring of next year to figure out something. But we may go along the route of painting it. We're not really sure. But with it getting so cold and so hot here, it actually, they say they don't even some companies a warranty for like a year or two, but because of where we're at, they won't warranty at all, just because of the thawing and de-thawing will bubble it, like you said. So
definitely.
we're kind of looking at the route of potentially getting it painted. And then on the outside, where there's not, like on the back side of the trailer, on the side where the serving window isn't, we were thinking about doing like a painted mural or something.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely looked at that route as well. And the only reason we didn't go with somebody painting it was because the look we wanted with our cartoon character is very specific,
Yep.
and somebody that could paint that well on that texture is hard. And we just didn't want to have to find someone to pay that price to also put the pressure, because we have I'm my biggest critic. I say that all the time. I notice all the little details if something's not right, and so putting that pressure on getting that cartoon character specifically was really rough. But a regular logo, a lot of logos I see people have, and just like the wording, like people can crush that with just paint on there. So if we do have issues with the vinyl. Long term, we are probably going to look at maybe redoing how it looks and having somebody paint it on there. So I totally understand that.
So talk us through the process of picking the equipment that you have in your trailer.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing you have to really pay attention to in a trailer setting is how much power you're going to be using. So typically mobile trailers run off of generators unless you're somewhere that has shore power that you can plug right into. And because of this, you have to be careful with the equipment you bring on, because if you run too much at a time, I've seen people say, help, how do I run this? Like if I run my blender, my espresso machine turns off. And it's like, that's obviously a huge problem. And while I'm not an electrician and don't understand electrical at all, if you're doing your research, you definitely find how that works and how you should be able to run things on specific lines and not pull too much power at a time. So with all the equipment I have in my trailer, if I was to run everything at once, I mean, my generator's out there screaming at me like, "Hey, please stop! Like I'm maxed out." And we have a fairly large generator, which is another thing you really have to spend time on when you're thinking about equipment as well, because that is a piece of equipment. Whether you like to think about it of equipment as not, the fun stuff is thinking about the coffee equipment. The hard stuff is thinking about what actually runs the coffee equipment. But as far as coffee equipment goes, I spent a lot of time. I've been and like I said, I've been in specialty coffee for a few years now, so I kind of thankfully know what to be looking for and how to craft kind of the best espresso you can. And so I put myself in a specific budget of how I wanted to spend for equipment. And because of this, I chose a machine that I don't think I would have upfront chose. Like I said, I chose the La Simonelli Appia Life, and I absolutely love it. I think it's a fantastic machine for catering, for a mobile application, for a startup of any kind. I think it's a really great machine. It is missing things like PID control, where you can control the brew head temperature. So if it is idling for a while, I have to clear my line so I'm not pushing too hot of water through my espresso machine, which sounds kind of contradicting, I know, because I told you guys earlier, you have to make sure you're pushing hot enough water through it, right? But because of that, it's something simple that I know how to work around, so I was comfortable choosing the machine. I think, my personal opinion, one of the biggest things when you're talking about espresso isn't necessarily the machine you're doing it on, but the grinder. And so I spent a little bit more money on my grinder. We use the Malkonig E65 grind by weight. If you guys aren't familiar with that, go check it out. If you are familiar with that, you're probably thinking, dang, like that's nice for a mobile application. So it definitely was a little bit more on the expensive side. There's definitely much price effective grinders out there that you can use that get the job done. But this one grinds your espresso straight by weight, so you're not worrying about dosing out the grams every time, resetting your seconds to make sure that you're lining up with the timing on it, everything like that. It just makes a mobile application that much better and that much faster. When I did catering before, I used a Maser Jolly grinder, got the job done. Fantastic. Maser is a fantastic brand to work with, obviously. But when you switch over to something that does grind by weight, you're cutting your service time down by that much every time. I mean, it's all automatic. And then while I know how to tamp, I wanted to make my application something where I could come on, I can preset everything, and I could have my wife help me and run it, or my brother-in-law, or any help that I might hire in. And I don't want them to have to know exactly what they're doing at the same amount that I do, because I've spent hours of time with YouTube and training in shops and learning how to pull the correct shot. So we run an EK65 grind by weight. That's preset. We run a puck press that is designed to sit underneath the grinder. That's already ready to go. So you put it in, your grinds dispense out, you level it just with your hand very quickly, you put it in the puck press, it applies even pressure throughout every time, so that every time my puck is created, it's going to be consistent as it can be every time. The rest is up to me to figure out the grind size and everything like that, to dial in my espresso to taste and to time and everything and all those factors. But once that's set, it really stays consistent. I'm really impressed with this machine. I wasn't sure what I was getting into. I read a lot of reviews. I did probably more hours of research than you would think you would have to do for an espresso machine, because there's a lot of good options out there. There's a lot of good brands. There's some that run off of propane, which people love to use in a mobile application, so they're not using electric. There's others you can go, you could get a Slayer, you could get a La Marzocco. My personal rep that I spoke to in Houston, because I was looking at the La Marzocco Linea Mini, recommended that I didn't use that specific machine. Now, I know that's a controversial topic for a lot of people on here because a lot of people use that for commercial applications, even in a small setting. But I let him know kind of what I was going to be using, the amount of volume I was going to be doing. And he was like, hey, great machine. I don't recommend it for what you're doing. He said I have a higher chance of my boiler burning out faster, keeping up with everything else as far as like long lines for big events. He said like it might do well for a while, but long term I don't recommend it. Here's what I do recommend. And while at the time I didn't necessarily thought I agreed, I'm so glad I asked somebody that is going to be working on my equipment. That was a really big deal. I looked at the Escasso Baby T for a long time, which is very similar to the Linear Mini in its forms of size, shape, capacity, features, all of that kind of thing. And when I asked my servicer, he was like, "I have no clue about that machine. I've never worked on an Escasso." And I kind of laughed and I was like, okay, well, at least you're being honest with me. And so I went with something that somebody around me locally could service. Because while I have a brief knowledge, if I have any kind of major malfunction, I want to call somebody that might have a backup machine for me to use while they're also servicing my equipment locally versus having to call a service provider from a website and see if they can send out a technician. Because oftentimes, they use the same technicians that you're going to find in your local area anyways. They contract them out to come work on this equipment that they don't necessarily always know about. So I went lower on the budget for the machine, but again, I love the equipment. I think it's great for the application. I went higher on price for the grinder. I went higher on the price to get an automatic tamper so that each of my shots can be quick and concise as possible. And then on the other side of things, I run what's called a ground control Cyclops. If you're not familiar with the company Ground Control, they're amazing. Check them out. They're just at Ground Control on Instagram. They have gotten several SCA awards for the technology that they use. They actually just came out with a newer machine that probably fits a mobile application better than their original Cyclops that we have, that is also at a much cheaper rate. But as somebody who really cares about coffee, I strive for a machine that could give me the best cup of drip coffee possible. And while your Curtis or your Fedco brewers do a really solid job, you lose a lot on how much you can control with those. So I went with something that we could control more, that also has the capability of doing batch cold brew, which in a mobile application helps because you're not just sitting with a toddy in your house or a toddy in your trailer and then going back to check on it and drain it and do all of the things. And it also runs batch espresso, which is a really hot topic in the mobile coffee community, batching your espresso for events, which I completely understand. Like I said, I care about specialty coffee. I don't try to serve super sugary drinks. I want it to be coffee forward, but I spent the time checking out this machine, getting to know the company. I went and saw one in the Chicago area when I lived there. I actually drove to the city and saw a shop that had one and talked to them about their application with it. And for iced lattes, I think batch espresso for a mobile application can be really useful. So in Texas, you can have a summer where it's 100 degrees outside and people are going to be going through iced coffee like no one's business. And instead of putting my single group Appia Life through the ringer to pull shot after shot after shot after shot for iced drinks, I decided to invest in a machine that can batch espresso to the same concentrate that espresso would be at, that is best used fresh, right? So you want to batch it fresh. You want to make sure that you're not keeping it for a long time, and you always want to do quality control. So if I batch a batch of espresso and it doesn't taste right, I'm gonna take that loss and I'm not gonna use it, and I will use my machine. But typically, we have no problems with the batch espresso that we can make on there. And for ice drinks, you really can't tell the difference. Once you're diluting a 12, 16-ounce latte with your whole milk or your oat milk, and especially if people are going to use a syrup like vanilla or mocha or something similar to that, you're not going to know the difference if I use my batch espresso or if I use espresso from my machine. Now, if you're going to order a cortado, you're going to order a hot latte, something where it's more espresso forward, I'm definitely going to be pulling you a shot and I'm going to be curating it and making sure it's as fresh as can be. But that was a big thing for us was, do we want to invest in this because it was not a cheap machine? And is it actually going to be helpful for application for us, which I think we check both of those boxes. And the fact that it's going to be very helpful for us whenever we get to an event where we're doing 50 to 100 to 150 ice drinks over several hours of time or even a shorter hour of time. And we can pop that out really quickly. I mean, it cuts the time in half. Instead of you pulling a shot, getting your ice ready, prepping the cup, doing this, you're pulling out your batch espresso and you can make the drink in half the time, if not less.
So the grind by weight Malconic that you have, definitely it's a great grinder. Do you have any issues being mobile having the grind by weight? Because I've known a couple business owners that have had that machine. because we were looking at doing that as well, and we were told yes and no to go for it and don't go for it only because the just the vibrations of being mobile and the generator and everything moving the trailer, that it kind of goes off here and there. Have you had that problem yet?
So, absolutely. I read up on that and I took the shot in the dark to get it anyways. My trailer, thankfully, has really good stability. So, the back of the trailer actually has two hand crank jacks. And so, anytime I show up to an event, that's part of the setup as well as just taking the trailer off of the truck, leveling it out. I do use a level for my front as well as the back to make sure I'm level in all angles possible. I have been in events where it's not possible to be level, and you've got stuff falling out of the fridge, you've got water moving in a weird way, and it does stink. But you kind of work around it when you get there and you find out that that's the only place you can park, right? But the jacks in the back are a must for us. So when I first hooked up the ground by weight, I did not have those jacks down, and I was trying to run it, and it definitely was finicky, hard to get it to work. Like you had to stand still and hold your breath and hope that like it would work. But then after you get somewhere, you stabilize it with the jacks in the back. While our trailer has a little shake to it, it's nothing that throws the grinder off. So we can be moving around the trailer, and it does still dispense. Now, it does have a slight delay at times if you're moving too much, obviously, because it wants to be steady as possible to read that weight as accurately as possible. But thankfully, in our mobile application, we haven't had an issue. And I know there's several options of jacks on Amazon where you can actually use you can buy like a 4 pack and you can set them on your frame, and that can help level your frame as well as give you a little bit more stability. So you're not, when you are moving around, it's not throwing that off.
Yeah, so for that's a good point. For us, we also have leveling jacks on all corners of our trailer. So we have two in
Right.
the back, two in the front. And that does make a big difference. Now, one tip of advice that I could give is what you said. There's some events you go to that it's almost impossible to be even and or to be level. We went to an event and it was on the side of the road, but the way that the road was shaped, it was like here's the side of the road, here's the side of the road. They kind of went up like this. So both sides were at a slant. And everybody else, like I pull up, and this was one of my first events with our trailer. And instead, I saw everybody else, they were half on the curb and half on the road. And I was like, why would they do that? So I was like, I don't know, the road's blocked off, so I might as well just be all on the road. Well, I quickly found out why they did that, and that's to get the trailer level because then they're on the grass and on the road. You have a
Yeah.
road that's like this and something that's like that. Well, I got there, set everything up, and I noticed it wasn't like super level. Well, we have an inverter, heat and AC unit that's hooked up on our wall. Well, because our trailer was at such a incline or such a decline, the actual unit itself was dripping water when the air conditioning was on in our
Yeah.
trailer onto our countertop. And I'm like, oh no. So we had to spend like an extra 20 minutes undoing the jacks, reparking it, and all the vendors were pretty much butted right up to us. So we didn't really have that much room. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's definitely a beginner's mistake for sure.
Totally. And like I said, we use a little 2 inch level. It sits on my back, it sits on my front, and make sure that we're as level as we can be. And um, I would say trust your level. There's times where I'm inside the trailer, I'm like, there's no way we're level right now. But I would be, my wife made fun of me the other day because I like checked it 4 times. I was like, this doesn't feel like we're level at all. But my fridge isn't messed up or anything like that. And the time we were on level, my pitcher rinser just was spitting out water constantly. I don't know if the amount of water that was pushed towards it, leaning the one way, was giving it too much pressure, but it was just constantly leaking out water. And it's done that once before, again, when I don't have my back jacks down and I'm not keeping my trailer completely level. And I think maybe that could be the effect. I mean, I've talked with my builder, Anthony, about why it could be doing that. Brand new pitcher rinser, it could be just a little spring on the inside. But like I said, I have not had any issues anytime I'm ever sitting level and running off my generator or shore power. It doesn't matter. The only time I've ever had issues is whenever I'm not level. And so that's something to think about is like your equipment can have an effect on how level you are. So,
So going back to that, kind of the issues that we were having, going back to a time where I know you guys just started not too long ago, but can you think of an event to where something was a big challenge and you had to overcome it while serving at an event?
oh, absolutely. So, like I said, we just opened our doors about 3 weeks ago, roughly, to start with everything. And We haven't had any issues yet with our specific setup and with our trailer, so I'm definitely blessed by that. I do think I've got so much of a future ahead to hopefully have a problem. I mean, is not what you want, obviously, but there's times it can happen. And one of the biggest times that I put myself in a pinch when I was a catering manager before this is we did mobile cart setups, mobile cart applications, and those are a lot of fun to do. Also, a lot of work that come with their own challenges. Very different from a mobile trailer. I will say that they're two totally different beasts.
Yeah.
And I went to an event where it was a huge, giant trade show, and we worked out the right contract for us to be there at specific prices and stuff. And we were running La Marzocco GS3s, which I highly recommend for a mobile application if you do want to spend the extra money to have a La Marzocco. The GS3s are fantastic, and they have a lot of great features on them, but they also are single group machines that can only handle so much volume before your boiler is going to be depleted. Your pump and your water system can only push so fast through a boiler, and you can only run so much water through that boiler before it's emptied, and you no longer have steam pressure, or your shots are no longer pulling at, the time of 27-ish seconds, give or take, that you wanted to pull at, that you set it to, and instead you're seeing it go down to like 19 or 18, and you're thinking, oh, my grinder's messed up. It's no, it's not your grinder, buddy, it's your machine, because you just spent the last 45 minutes, hour and a half, however long it might take for your specific machine, pumping so much water through it, drink after drink after steam, and you'll see your steam lines start to go down. And that's the first sign that you need to slow things down. You need to be able to take a step back, or you need to set yourself up to know the limit that you have. So we were actually running two stands at this trade show that day, which is why it was an issue. Both of our GS3s were there, but one of them was across the way at a private booth for that specific company that hired us to be in that booth, right? So our company was set up as VS More Coffee, and my steam just went way depleted. And it's a great thing. That's a great problem to have. If you're having a problem with your steam keeping up, that means you're selling drinks, which means you're having a good time, right? So we were excited in one way, but as the manager for the event, you're sitting there thinking, what am I going to do? Because I have a line of people waiting to order drinks. I've got 4 people that just ordered drinks. They're all hot drinks, and I can't pull a decent shot, and I also can't seam the milk. And the best thing you can do in that time is be honest with your customers. Hey, I'm so sorry. We're moving at a really fast pace right now. My machine can't keep up. Can you please give us a few minutes? If you have to offer them a refund, if you're doing a sell by cup kind of thing, you have to offer them a refund. You want to make sure customer service is always first. So you want to make sure that you're communicating with the customer. This is what's happening. This is why I'm moving at a slower pace. I appreciate your patience. I understand if you don't have the time to wait, which is what I had to do until our boilers brought back to temperature. And then later that day, we were able to bring the other machine over to our other setup and connect it and have the actual 2 machines we need. But we did put ourselves in that position of, yeah, we can do this, no problem. And then it was a problem because we didn't expect to see that high of a volume and that fast of a time. And we didn't have both of our machines there to assist, so that when one went down, we had the other one to work off of, which is something that in a mobile application with a single group machine like I have now, is something I definitely have to be aware of. Don't overcommit yourself because you want to make the sale. You might have somebody say, I've got 400 guests and I want them served in 2 hours. Can you do it? And you might think, yeah, I can do that. Here's your invoice. And like, I'll definitely get it done. But if you don't have the equipment to get it done, and it doesn't matter if you've got 6 people. 6 people are going to be standing there looking at the machine saying, I can't do anything. So you have to make sure that your equipment can keep up with the volume you're promising. And for us, I would say within a 2-hour time period, if I'm doing an event, I can commit to about 150 to 200 people, with that one machine running for 2 hours. I can do roughly that. And that will be some give and take on a few minutes here, a few minutes there, but nothing too crazy. But just know your machine, know your equipment, and know how much you can handle before you overcommit and undersell because you don't have the right process going on.
Yeah, so that brought me to my next question, and you answered it right there. Was how do you go above and beyond to give your customers a good experience? And you answered it right. Just be completely upfront, honest with them. And like you said, if you're having issues and it takes a little bit longer, offer them a refund, because they're going to remember that might be a loss for that drink and that customer. But really, you're gaining a customer for future events and stuff like that. You're going to have someone who's more willing to come to your business because you did what you did for that customer satisfaction.
And I'd love to touch on that a little bit more. If you're thinking about starting in this industry and you've never worked in a service industry before, I highly recommend taking any kind of course you can find to help with service industry skills. I personally don't know of any I could recommend, but I was a waiter, a bartender, and a barista for several years, probably about 5 years total before I ever opened my own business. And that service experience really does help you out. Through service experience, you hear the common misconception to me is that the customer is always right. And when I hear that, I want to scream. I hate that response in the service industry because if you work in the service industry, you know the customer is not always right. However, customer service is always first. And that's why how I would like for if you're listening to this, I would want you to replace that. The customer is not always right, but in our business, customer service always comes first. Meaning, if my customer has an issue with a drink or a product or anything similar to that, that you would think, well, they're right. If a customer told me they ordered oat milk and I might know that they didn't order oat milk, I'm so sorry about that. I'm so happy to remake this for you. Just give me a quick second. Let me remake that, um, to the extent where I'm happy to give somebody a refund if I make their drink wrong and they don't want me to remake it. Today, I didn't have batch coffee brewed because I had a quick issue this morning. And one of my first customers asked for drip coffee. And I said, I'm so sorry, I don't have any yet. I'm happy to make you an Americano, which, if you know, is very similar to a black coffee. And he was like, oh, okay. And I said, but I'll also honor the drip coffee price because my drip coffee is about $1 cheaper than my Americano. And I'm not going to make a customer pay for something that he didn't necessarily want to order and pay more for it just because I wasn't prepared to have that ready. So definitely taking care of your customers makes a big difference. Getting Google reviews can help your business a lot. Make sure you're on Google. Make sure you're getting Google reviews. I'm still fighting to get Google reviews every day. Hey, if you leave us a Google review, I'll give you a discount, stuff like that. And you want to make sure that your customers are leaving you good reviews with positive feedback so that if you do have an issue, like you said, they're going to remember that you went above and beyond to help them fix that issue in the best way that was possible for your business and for that customer.
Yeah, that's awesome. Definitely something to take away if you're looking to start a business, or even if you have a business and you haven't implemented that already.
Yeah.
Definitely something good to look into. Like you said, take a class and really learn about what it takes to go above and beyond with good customer service. So we're going to go into another one. What are, if you do have any, I know you just started, what are future expansion goals for Sweet Pea Coffee Company in the future? Are you looking to go brick and mortar? Are you looking to stay mobile, go more mobile businesses, maybe have 2 or 3? What's your plan to expand if you have any?
Yeah, absolutely. We started this business with an expansion plan. So we do have a plan to expand and fully open a shop that's not only mobile. Now, as far as past those plans, I would love to sit here and give you the ideas and opinions on what I'd like to do or what I'd think would be right. But I've found that in business as a whole, um, you can make plans all you want, but those plans might not always turn out how you have it. I mean, you can have a specific roadblock path of how to get to that plan, but it might not end up being the best plan for you. And you might learn that as your business grows. So every business is different. So for us, Sleepy Coffee Company, my hope, my dream, my goal as we started this company is to start mobile, to do events, to bring coffee and specialty coffee to places that don't have it, to bring fun, to see those smiles on the customers' faces. But our long term goal is to find a place that we want to open a shop. Part of the reason we didn't start with opening a shop in the first place was because we didn't know where we wanted to end up. So one of the biggest discussions we had when moving back from Illinois to Texas was we thought about opening a shop there where we were, but we didn't know if we were going to be there long term. So if you are going to open a brick and mortar somewhere, make sure you're going to be there long term. Make sure you're not looking down the road 5 years and thinking, 5 years, 6 years from now, are we still going to be here, or is there a chance we could be somewhere else? And that is not only effective of your business but your personal life. Like, are we going to move closer to family? Is our family planning to move? Would we have to move for our jobs? Because that can upend your business really quickly if you have to move, and a lot of things look different. You might have to completely sell out, and while that might not be a bad thing in terms of profit for you, it might not be what you're looking to do long term anyways. So we started mobile for that reason as well. That I forgot to touch on was just we weren't sure where we wanted to end up. So our long-term goal is to open a brick and mortar eventually, to have a space for people to come in. And I dream that we can still do events during that. I would want to do something similar to the last shop I worked at that did pretty well by hiring a catering manager that manages all events. and runs your mobile side of things. So that way you can handle all of your brick and mortar day-to-day activities and you have somebody you can trust that is handling your mobile capabilities. But the one thing you have to do when doing that is making sure that your systems are down correctly, that you have a good system to teach people and to show people so that whenever they come take this business on, they can put their touch on it however they like, give and take, but you at least have a backbone and a layout of how this works, how it operates, what it looks like that they can build off of. So that way they are not just coming in running a business that they've never done before. I mean, most people you bring into mobile applications, unless you somehow find someone that's been doing catering in the past in some way, shape, or form, have no idea the strenuous amount it takes of setup, tear down, making sure you're ready to go, pivoting if you have any issues within your trailer or your mobile application. It's a lot of work. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort, and it takes keeping a cool head on your shoulders and to make sure everything is running correctly. So, yeah, our long term growth is to hopefully continue mobile applications. I don't think we want to open any more mobile applications. I'm not looking to do 2 or 3 applications at a time. If I did, I would recommend doing a cart system because you're actually going inside of businesses. Again, two totally different beasts in being a trailer that's a mobile application and a cart that's a mobile application. So, but definitely a growth plan for us is a brick and mortar with hopes of continuing the catering business for our company.
So, what advantages do you see starting small or starting as a mobile unit, as opposed to starting right away into a brick and mortar? What are the advantages and disadvantages do you think is of starting mobile?
Oh, absolutely. Advantages are going to be upfront costs, monthly costs. Those are the two biggest advantages I can think of. I mean, if you think it's cheap to start a mobile coffee company because you can buy the equipment you need for maybe 10 grand or less, boy, do you have it coming. It's not a cheap thing to start. It is very expensive. There are different ways to save money and to make money in the setup process, but again, it's not a cheap thing to do. But if you look at the startup of a shop, you're looking at a lot more. So right now, our monthly costs are really, really low. We're talking commissary tickets, gas, and then like labor to pay myself. But other than that, we're not really in the whole monthly. But for a shop, if you're starting out, you're looking at typically either buying somewhere, which is really expensive to do, or renting or leasing, which is almost more expensive than buying somewhere these days if you really plan it out. I mean, it's not cheap to lease a space. And then you have to create that space the way you want to create it. So it's just a lot more expensive to start a shop. Now, if you feel passionate about that and you are in a spot where I'm not, you're going to be there for a long time, you think it's a great location, then I would say please, by all means, go for it if you have the funds and ability to do that. I think that's awesome and more power to you. But a mobile application, the biggest advantages for sure are just being able to keep your monthly costs down. Now, a huge disadvantage is space. I don't have a lot of space to store stuff. If I took you guys out into my living room right now, you would see boxes everywhere. I did a huge Weber front order for cups and stuff like that. And in the area that we live in currently, I don't have a ton of space to store stuff. So make sure that when you think about storage, you don't plan to do it on your trailer because remember, you don't want boxes and boxes of stuff on your trailer when you're serving. You want to be able to present to your customer in a way that looks presentable and that they like to see and that they find attractive to look at because that's a huge grab of customers' attraction to come to you. So you don't want to keep all your boxes and stuff somewhere you don't have space to do so. And while we do have some storage on our trailer, I don't have enough to house the boxes of cups and sleeves and lids and stuff. And so we had to decide what are the sizes that we want to serve? How can we cut that down? And so we're not serving all these different sizes. When do we take these sizes versus when do we take these? And so I have some stuff in my storage that we have here, but other stuff is just in my living room waiting for me to make the space to store it. So that's my biggest factor as a mobile application. I mentioned earlier, I've got to bring my milks inside my apartment when I'm done with all of my servicing to keep it in a mini fridge or in my fridge because I'm not plugged up to electric all of the time. And that's another thing of storage. So storage is definitely the number one thing that's like really frustrating. Also, make sure that you have a commissary near you if your health department requires a commissary. We have to fill up um, for our commissary pretty regularly. I'm in between two different counties where I live, so I'm I'm certified now in 2 counties so that I can serve, because 5 minutes one way is one county and 5 minutes the other way is another one. And they have two totally different regulations. One county, my commissary ticket's good for 7 days, which is fantastic. The other county, my commissary ticket is good for 24 hours.
Oh,
So that means I have to go fill up every single evening before I serve the next morning in order to keep their health department regulations on the wraps. Like, in order to keep, a healthy bill of sale, as you want to call it, for them, so that when they come check you out, you're good to go and you're not, crossing any lines that they don't want you to cross. So that's another downside, is that you don't have your water ran on a city water line. You don't have plumbing for a bathroom. You're fully mobile. You've got water tanks, and you've got gray water tanks that have to be emptied and filled up. And typically those are regulated by a commissary. So
yeah. So when you go into an event and you have everything hooked up, how long does it take you from your house to get to the commissary? Just kind of give people an idea of, I mean, everybody's going to be different, but just to factor in that time before
yeah,
you go to an event.
totally. So one of my counties that I go to, the commissary is about 25 minutes there and about 25 minutes back, which in Houston is not very crazy. It's not abnormal to be driving 30-ish minutes or so to get where you want to go in the area. So that commissary is relatively close. It's not that bad of a drive, and I don't mind it. Now, the other commissary, to get to the commissary, is about 35 minutes roughly. So it's not that much further than the other one. But depending on the time of day I go, it could be about 35 minutes to get back, or it could be an hour and a half to get back, because Houston traffic is just atrocious at times. So if I wait to go to the commissary and I'm headed back in peak traffic time, I run into traffic trying to make it home. And while I'm pulling a trailer, which already adds on a little bit more time than it would if you were just driving a regular car, then you get stuck in traffic and you're pushing your times way back, which is time wasted in the car for no reason. With that being said, I had to drive an hour and a half to get to my health inspection a couple of weeks ago. So one of the counties that I'm in is so large that the only place they do health inspections is an hour and a half from where I live. And so that was also an issue to run into, but it has to be done. You can't get around it unless you just want to try to skim under the radar, in which case you could end up with large fines and fees and bans. There's a lot of things that could happen depending on where you live. So
Yeah, so this is definitely something that, like, you go to an event, like, let's say you don't have a coffee business, you're going to Sweet Pea Coffee, like, I'm just coming in as a customer. I don't see everything that happens before and after. I just see at the event, and there's so much more time that's required of a mobile coffee business or any mobile trailer business at all, cart, anything, that you're more so setting up, tearing down, and preparing for an event longer than the event itself.
yeah, totally, absolutely. A lot of times my serve time is nothing compared to the time of preparation it took. There's lots of moving pieces. This last Saturday, we did a pop up for an apartment complex, and after we tore down, we did a deep clean inside of the trailer. My wife was there to help me, thankfully, and we deep cleaned it to be ready for this week. And then we drove 25 minutes to the commissary to get a new commissary ticket for the week. Even though ours wasn't up and we still had a little bit of water left in our water tank to be able to do another day or two, we thought, in planning that, how are we going to best serve ourselves this week? And to do that was, because we're already hooked up to our trailer and we're already busy, let's just go there now. Let's fill our tanks up to be good for this week and get our commissary ticket for this county specifically. And we'll be good to go. So there's a lot of thought that goes into it. Your customer definitely does not see the hardship. And that also, while you kind of took the words out of my mouth, I want to take the second to say, hey, don't short yourself on your pricing when you're doing catering for mobile applications, because people are going to say, oh man, that much for that much coffee? Like, I can buy coffee for this cheap. You're going to hear all kinds of objections, you guys. And if you stand behind your product and you're serving quality stuff and you care about what you're serving, your cup of coffee might cost you $4, $5 to make a profit on when you're doing a pop-up. But think about the time it takes for you to cater. Think about your drive time, the gas for your truck or your car and your generator, the time it takes you to set up, the time it takes you to tear down. An average commissary price ticket here is $20. It cost me $19 to go to each of the commissaries here. So, you have to factor in all of those things and don't sell yourself short just because your cost of the cup of coffee might be much lower. You can't sell it at that price because there's a lot of other factors that go into it.
So you're selling a 12-ounce latte. How much do you charge for a 12-ounce?
Our 12-ounce latte is 450, and then we charge 50 cents for flavorings if you choose to have one, and 50 cents for alternative milks. And we only offer oat and almond milk. Other than that, all of our stuff is made with whole milk, and I do have a gallon of skim milk for the people that do want to use skim milk for their lattes. And I don't charge extra for skim, but alternative milks are oat and almond milk. And then we offer a smaller list of flavorings so that I don't have too many. Again, I aim to sell specialty coffee. I want the customer to engage in the latte I can make or the drip coffee. We spend a lot of time in finding who we source our beans from and where they source their beans from, their green beans specifically, and how they roast them. So we have some really good coffees on our trailer. Um, I would be bold enough to say that we have the best cup of coffee in Katy, Texas. So if you're ever in the area, come check us out because I've been to several shops around here and I spend a lot of time making sure that the product I'm selling really matches what I'm doing. But I did want to keep my prices competitive. So as far as pricing goes, we had to find a price structure that fit us to make money when we did pop-ups. Like today, I'm popped up at a place where I was not paid to be at. I'm simply there serving the community and hopes to make some money for the day. And because of that, we have specific pop up prices versus specific catering prices that we charge when people hire us to come do X amount of people and X amount of time. But pricing is a really big deal. I just be really honest with you guys. I used Chat GPT when I was doing my pricing. Now you have to have all of your factors in order for them to give you a specific number that's going to work for you. But I broke down the cost per espresso shot, the cost per drip, like how much does my pound of coffee cost for my 5 pound bag versus how much cups or shots can I get out of that. And then you have to factor in the cost of milk and break that down by roughly how many drinks you can get. I mean, if you want to actually figure out how much it costs you down to the sticker on your sleeve, then it's tedious and it does take time, but it is one of the most important steps because if you're just thinking, oh, they sell coffee for X amount of dollars, so I'll sell coffee for X amount of dollars, then you really have no clue what your profit range is on what you're making. And so you could be giving yourself an awesome profit of like 60%, or you could be giving yourself a really terrible profit of like 20% because you're not really realizing how much it costs you to make that cup of coffee. So I can tell you the cost of each of my drinks from my 8 ounce lattes, my 9 ounce ice shaken espressos to my 16-ounce flavored lattes with oat milk. Like I have a specific breakdown of how much it costs me and a specific amount of how much it needs to cost in order for my business to be profitable while still offering reasonable prices that are comparable to any other shop around here. I never want somebody to say in a Google review or word of mouth, they were good, but their pricing was kind of high. I want a customer to think, man, that was a great latte, and the pricing was just on par with what I pay at Starbucks, or it was even cheaper than what I pay at Starbucks, even. So that was a really big deal to us.
So talking about menu options, a couple questions remaining here. How so when you say about the menu options that you have, how important is it as a mobile specialty coffee business to have a very limited menu, to where you're not having 18 different syrups and
Yeah.
that space wise and for your customers? What can you say on that?
Oh, it's very important to me. So one of the last shops I worked at, I took a step away from catering when we had our son because the hours were crazy for us at the time of having our first newborn. But the last shop I worked at, while we cared about the coffee we made and we made really good coffee, it also can double as a sugar shop, as I like to call them. And some people might be offended by that, but I'm sorry that's what it turned into because when you have a 16-ounce latte with mocha and peppermint, it doesn't matter how the espresso tastes. Most of the time, you're going to drown it out with the milk and all the sugary syrup, which is great. I get down on that sometimes. I can wreck a pumpkin spice latte. Don't get me wrong, okay? But if we want to talk specialty coffee, I wanted to offer a variety of syrups that my customers can relate with and find something that they will enjoy and not force them to have to only get something specialty. But I also wanted to keep such a small selection in hopes that I can get that regular customer that might come back or the customer that's somewhere thinking, maybe I'll give that a try. like I want them to say, "Oh, maybe I'll do this and give it a try." Because you come up and you ask me what my favorite drink is, I'm going to tell you a cortado, and they're going to be like, "What's that?" And then I'm going to explain to what it is, and they're going to be like, "I don't know," and I'm going to say, "You can just give it a try. And if you don't like it, I'll make you another one free of charge." And I'm willing to offer that to somebody in hopes that they're going to taste something they've never had and maybe get a really coffee forward flavor that they're going to like, and it's not going to be bitter or gross. But I do offer some flavors. I offer some basic flavors. So our here to stays is what we call them. Are white chocolate, mocha, caramel, salted caramel, because we just add salt to our caramel sauce already and make a salted caramel, and vanilla, and then a honey simple syrup as well. So we use just those basic flavors to here to stay, and then we rotate about 3 seasonal flavors, which right now I have pumpkin spice, toasted marshmallow, and spiced brown sugar. And so those are all of our seasonal flavors that will eventually get transitioned with white peppermint mocha whenever it starts to get colder here and stuff like that. But I think it's important that you find a balance for your business and for your audience. So a lot of people like sugary lattes and they want that, and I want to offer that, but I also want to offer the specialty really good coffee for those who come to a shop to get a good latte.
Yeah. So speaking about your menu in the 3 weeks that you've been in operation, what is your most popular drink and why do you believe so?
um we haven't had a you know I was thinking about this question. You prefaced it to me earlier, thankfully, and I've really had time to sit on it. And I don't have an answer to that. We're blessed to say that we've sold a pretty even amount of all of our product. We do offer teas, aside from a chai latte and a dirty chai. We do offer black tea and a green tea, and we also offer Italian cream sodas. Which, if you don't know what that is, it's essentially just fizzy water, like a soda water mixed with a syrup like vanilla, or if you want to do a flavoring like a fruit flavor, like we have raspberry and blood orange for those flavorings. And then a regular soda, like Italian soda, is no cream, and a cream soda is just a splash of heavy cream in there. And if you never had one, make one, try it. They're fantastic. They're a great alternative to sell to customers for a pretty low cost to you and to them, and they're great to sell to kids. And we also offer lemonade as well. But through all these offerings, I mean, I've sold just as many lemonades and Italian sodas as I have lattes at times on days. So I would say maybe our most popular drink would be just a 12-ounce latte with any kind of different flavoring in it. I mean, people haven't really stuck to one specific flavor. All of my syrup bottles are pretty even at this point. So,
Yeah, and I can say that being mobile, it's super important to have alternatives to coffee, not just because you're going to have people that just simply don't drink coffee. It hurts me saying that.
right,
But there are a lot of people out there that don't drink coffee. There's a lot
right,
of kids that are going to come that their parents aren't going to let them get coffee. So having that alternative is a good way to make business set aside from just selling coffee. And not only
yeah,
that, but it really takes the stress off of your machine. And like, let's say
yeah,
you're out and you have a line of 20 people. Not only do those alternative drinks move that line faster, but it lets your machine kind of keep up. If you have, let's say, back to back to back espresso drinks, and then the next 6 drinks are alternative to coffee, now
yeah.
you're giving your machine that optimal time it needs to
Yeah.
kind of recoup, regenerate, while you're also satisfying your customers with
Yeah,
those
they're
drink
way
options.
way quicker to get out than a coffee beverage most times, which cuts your costs down as for labor and gets drinks out way faster, which is nice. While we're talking about that, I want to give a shout out to a company called Maya Tea. So in a mobile application talking about syrups, this kind of ties in. Chai concentrates typically have to be refrigerated, which not only takes up refrigeration space, but also something you have to store away at the end of the night in your refrigerator or keep your electric on if you have it, thankfully. But um, they make shelf stable teas. So they have what's called tea shots. So our teas are a chai concentrate that they use, which is honestly absolutely delicious. And it's shelf stable, meaning I don't have to keep it in my refrigerator, so I can store it in my go bin, as well as green tea and black tea. And they have a hibiscus as well if you wanted to have it, but that makes it really quick for us to use a tea shot. So if somebody asks for a black iced tea, I just have to put tea concentrate in water, stir it up, and I'm done. I don't have to steep a tea bag. So I don't offer any like Earl Greys or lavender kind of teas or anything like that. I stayed away from having numerous different tea bags and options because typically those sit and sit and sit and sit. And that's probably my least sold thing right now is tea, thankfully, and that's okay with me. But I want to offer that to people that want it. So I chose something that's not only shelf stable, but also makes sense for my business because I don't have to store it anywhere else. It takes up the space that I have allotted it for it to take up. So something like that is really helpful, finding shelf stable products that can make your business go faster that also taste really well. So again, that company is called Maya Tea. They're out of Mesa, Arizona, I think, or somewhere in Arizona, and they will send you samples. So reach out to them. They'll send you samples. So you can try whatever you want from them. So they've got some really cool products that align really well with my business.
Awesome. So yeah, definitely go check that company out. And just to kind of wrap this interview up, just the last couple questions that I have. Sum up what your mission with Sweet Pea Coffee is, and what kind of advice can you give to mobile coffee business owners that are looking to start a business? And then what advice can you give to those who already have a business that may be struggling?
Yeah. Um, to answer all three of those questions, let's see. Start our when you pull up our website, you'll see something. You'll see our little statement that says, "We bring the buzz to you." That's a fun play on bringing the buzz of caffeine to you, and we bring it to you because we're a mobile application, obviously. But my goal as a mobile coffee shop or as a sweet pea coffee company as a whole is to make coffee approachable. So often people will try some of our drinks and be like, "This isn't bitter," or they'll have an Americano with no cream or sugar and be like, "Oh, I don't normally drink coffee black." And it's like, good. Like that's what I'm looking for. I want you to show that specialty coffee is not unobtainable. It's actually super approachable. It's just a matter of how you make it and where you're getting your beans from. So you don't have to have this fancy, super expensive equipment that I have to make a good cup of coffee. But let me show you what a good cup of coffee can taste like. And then I want you to ask me how to do that at home. And so something I'm really passionate about is making coffee approachable for people, like teaching them, training them on how to make it at home so that they can make it themselves and make it taste really good. And even if that looks like using a Chemex at home, or if that looks like how to make a good cup of coffee in your regular coffee pot just by upgrading to whole bean and grinding it at home. Like there's so many little things you can do to have really good obtainable coffee at home. And my main thing is I want you to come have fun. I want you to smile and have a good drink from our shop, but I want you to take the knowledge and the ability to make good coffee at home with you for future use and to share with other people. So our goal is to make coffee approachable. And so I hope to continue that whole application through all of my processes, whether that be mobile or that be a brick and mortar, whatever that might look like. And so that's one thing I want to do. Um, a tidbit of advice is don't rush yourself. I had these really big plans that I thought I would be like when we were moving. I contacted Anthony from Press On, and he got our trailer done really quickly for us. But I put him on a timeline that I sometimes regret because he committed to a timeline. And then I held him to it, thinking that when I got back to Texas, I could start up almost immediately so that my company could be on the ground and we could be making money. So we're not throwing more in monthly because you do throw in monthly money. You have more expenses than you think. You've got sales tax, you've got if you're paying yourself, that's something that's coming out weekly or every other week or however you do it. Because if you're starting a startup and you're not sitting on savings, you have to figure out the investment you're going to put in to continue to pay yourself until you can start making money to pay yourself as a business. So that's an investment, as well as just getting advice from lawyers, starting an LLC, or however you do it, an S corp, whatever it might be. These things take time and they're hard. And if you've never done it, you don't know how. And it's okay to say, I don't know how to do it, and to ask for help or to spend time figuring it out because it's a big deal. It's not as easy as buying a machine and a grinder and a water tank and setting up and selling coffee. And it might seem really overglorified sometimes to people, thinking that it's really quick and easy and you can get out really cheap. And there are ways you can, but if you want to do it the right way and you care about what you're serving people and you care about the business name that you give yourself, if you care about Sweet Pea Coffee Co. like we do, we took all the steps to make sure we're doing everything right. Permitting takes a long time. It's hard to know what needs to be done. And we worked with a builder Anthony, again, amazing guy who knew the specifications we needed. And then if anything didn't meet the specifications, he worked with us on how to fix it so that we could pass our inspection. So make sure you're not working with just a builder that throws trailers together to sell them, that is worried about selling a trailer. We worked with a builder who is worried about getting you a good trailer, but also helping you get the knowledge you need to start the business. Like I said, while I knew a lot about coffee starting, I knew nothing about a trailer mobile application. So it was like a whole fresh start for me. And because of that, the timeline I wanted to open up in got pushed back by months, by another month, by another month. You know, I made the running joke. People kept asking me, "Oh, but how long till you open?" And I was like, "Oh, probably about 3 weeks." 3 weeks have passed, probably about 2 weeks, 2 weeks, probably about 2 more weeks, you know? And it's like, you keep asking me, and every time somebody asks me the question, I was like, dang it, it's going to be 2 more weeks because somebody asked me again. Like, you know, and it's okay. It's okay to go slow. Don't rush yourself, because if you rush yourself, you're going to miss things. You're not going to do it right. And you want to do it right the first time. I've passed both of my health inspections the first try, no issues, because of the way that we've done things, because I took the time to know my equipment. I took the time to know my builder who helped me build out a trailer that was ready to pass an inspection. You know, there's nothing to fear about failing an inspection. You might lose the money, you might have to pay another fee, but at least you're going to know exactly what you need to get done the next time because you didn't have it done right the first time. So don't be afraid to take the leap. Don't be afraid to know it's going to take you a little bit longer, and don't let it turn you off from the idea of doing it either. If you have a business already and you're struggling, man, keep your head up. Like, it's around the corner. Like, it sounds cheesy, but my wife and I watch a lot of Shark Tank, and even those entrepreneurs, you hear their story of, I was down on my luck, I thought it was all over, and here I am now, you know, and like, here's how. And it's because you kept believing in yourself. If you have the motivation to start a business and you've made it this far and you have an application up and running, then dang, you have done a lot. You've put a lot of work in, a lot of hours, a lot of learning, and that's amazing. So don't give up on yourself now. Just continue to grind, find new ways to market yourself, find new ways to sell your products. I've literally been driving around with flyers for my business, handing them out to local businesses with prices and deals on them, trying to get foot traffic while we're new, because I want to be anywhere I can be right now. Any exposure is good exposure. And so you want to be out there, you want to be grinding. You can't expect people just to come to you, because there's millions of other coffee shop applications out there that people could choose to go to. So surround yourself with people that know things that you want to learn, people that will help you get to where you want to be, and other businesses that might be doing the same thing. I've reached out to other mobile unit operators in the area around me, and I've chatted with them about struggles with health department, struggles with the area, how to market themselves in the area. And, you know, the community typically is really open. If you're not a part of a mobile business application on Facebook, this is how I'm a part of this right now, is being a part of a mobile application business on Facebook that just goes around giving advice on how things can operate and how things can run. And so be willing to take that advice, be willing to ask the questions and not be afraid of asking the questions. You know, it's okay to ask questions to get where you want to be, because there's likely somebody that's already been there and figured out a way to overcome the obstacle you might face.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't say it any better myself. On behalf of Espresso Outlet and we just appreciate your time today to be able to do this interview with us. And I know that when people start to watch these interviews on our YouTube channel, that it definitely can, all the advice that every one of you give us, it's going to help everybody tremendously. And they're going to be very, very thankful for all the advice and the time that you spent giving us the interview. So we really appreciate it, and definitely stay in touch. If you need anything, reach out to us. And other than that, I'll see you on the mobile coffee business application, like you said. And I believe you have an event coming up later today. So good luck with that. And yeah, we just appreciate everything.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Hopefully any information I gave helped. And if you're watching this and you want to ask me any personal questions, feel free to DM us. Again, our Instagram is Sweet Pea Coffee Co. and our website is sweetpea.coffee.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate it, Peyton, and we hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you as well.
Thank you.